So this is a story that I actually find pretty hilarious and very pathetic. First, a little bit of context. We now know the DNC has just a little bit more cash on hand than they have debt. According to the reporting by the Washington Examiner, their party has $8.7 million cash, but it's currently $7 million in debt.
Yikes.
The RNC eclipses that cash on hand amount by almost triple.
But the other part of the story here is about the timing of the report being made public by the DNC. Hill TV correspondent Reed Wilson was all over the story, too. He tweeted out that the DNC dropped the report in the middle of the Democratic debate. Yikes, obviously trying to bury that one. Joining us now with her thoughts on that and last night's debate is National Spokesperson for the RNC, Liz Harrington. Great to see you.
Good to see
Good to see you, Liz.
Well, we've really teed you up with this one, Liz.
That's a nice
Your
one.
thoughts, yeah.
Take it.
It's truly amazing. They hope no one was going to notice, you know, because of the riveting 2-hour Democrat snooze fest. But in the middle of it, they had to announce their abysmal numbers. We have over $61 million cash on hand, and the DNC is practically bankrupt.
Tell people who don't know why it matters. Like, what does this money go towards?
It goes right into the ground. It allows us to expand the map and be active in states that we weren't active even in 2016.
It's like voter turnout, data,
absolutely,
infrastructure,
volunteers, getting them the resources they need to get out and talk why we should elect Republicans all up and down the ballot.
That's the main thing. I mean, whoever starts off as the Democratic nominee not only is going to have, 10 times less cash than whatever Trump has on hand, they're also not even going to have this campaign infrastructure that you guys have basically built out over the last 2.5 years. I mean, it's something I spend a lot of time talking about here because the media is just constantly like, Trump campaigns on, this shoddy effort. I'm like, no. It's not 2016 anymore. There's a lot of money behind this thing. It's a very professional operation.
Absolutely. And it's all about finding voters where they are on issues that matter to them. And no matter who gets the nomination, they're not, on the Democrat side, they're not going to be able to compete with the resources we've already built up, with the data operation. And it's all issue-driven, idea-driven as well. We're talking about how to find voters on whether they care about the economy the most, the immigration the most, different issues, and be able to talk to them about the record and get them out active in next November, because we've already been active for so long in some of these states, and of course we're expanding the map.
Yeah, and look, on the other hand, Hillary Clinton had all the money she could possibly want last time, and ultimately people didn't want what she was selling.
Candidates matter.
Candidates matter. But I will say, what you're pointing out is that ground game, especially down ballot, actually, I almost think it's more important than at the presidential level, because there's so much media attention. Whoever the Democratic candidate is certainly going to have tons of money. I almost think it's more important for the down ballot ticket, where a field organization that's really effective on the ground can make up 1 to 2 points. This Kentucky race that you all were on the losing end of, all my reporting on the ground said that the Democratic candidate had this really effective field operation, ends up winning by 5,000 votes. So it can make the difference in those types of close situations, especially at the state, congressional, and down ballot level.
Absolutely, and we're defending some Senate seats next year. We're also looking to pick up a couple, flip some states like Alabama. There's just all these, of course, on the general election map that trickles all the way down. Even in a state like Maine, I was there last week, we can get an electoral college vote in the 2nd district there.
Right.
Senator Collins is up for re-election there. We're active on the ground there. It's a very important state. And it's a key thing to keep in mind, because Electoral college gone, none of these voices matter. None of these small states matter. None of the rural Americans' votes matter, and that's what the Democrats are talking about.
Let's not fight about it.
I was like, oh no,
they're not showing up.
I was like, you're teeing Crystal
right
up
now, there's a lot of states that don't matter with the Electoral college. It's the certain set of
lot more
swing
than California
states.
and New York.
It's a certain amount of swing states that always get all the focus and attention. Let's not fight on that one. But, I did want to ask you, I also don't want to fight with you about impeachment, because what good does it do? We're not going to agree. However, I do want to know.
Do not care.
I do want to know, though, how you see, what you're seeing in the polling in terms of how independents are feeling about how this process is playing out. Like, yesterday was a bad day for your guy. It was. You're not going to want to admit it, but it was. But overall, we reported here, there was a poll that showed independents moving 10 points away from impeachment. There was a Wisconsin poll showing, improved numbers for President Trump. where even though people say they don't like what he did, they maybe don't necessarily think that it was impeachable or think that this is what Democrats should be spending all their time on. But I'm curious what you're seeing in the polls.
Especially a year out from the next election. And that's a very key point. They're trying to overturn the results of 2016 less than a year before 2020.
Right.
And over what? And so we've seen just a huge groundswell of support. People are outraged. People are so tired of the same game because this has been going on since before he was even inaugurated. This is the same attack. It's the same baseless conspiracy theories. And, yesterday actually was a good day because it completely refuted the conspiracy theory driven by Adam Schiff.
Let's not do this.
Driven by Adam Schiff.
Sondland
That
was
it was
in the know.
connected, that
He
it was
said it went to the
connected to
top.
investigations.
He said there was a quid pro quo with
He said
regard
there
at
was
least
no
to the White House
quid pro quo
visit.
with
This is why we
investigations.
don't want to fight about
So
it.
there's a quid pro quo for a meeting, whatever. I don't
And the
know
meeting
what it is.
happened.
Yeah, it's so annoying. But anyway, I think what Crystal and I are trying to get at, which is that independent swing and that Wisconsin poll in particular was very interesting because I think it was the overwhelming majority were like, yeah, I believe that some political influence was used by the president, and yet he's beating Biden and Sanders in the head-to-head matchups. What are some of the other data that you guys are seeing in terms of this impeachment? I know that America First Policies, which is a super PAC, had a focus group, and they showed very similar things on swing voters who were like, look, we don't care. Or if anything, it's actually swinging many independent voters, the small group of independent, more towards President Trump.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and the president's approval rating has been ticking up since they started this. The swing states as well. Our internal polling since about a week into this charade has shown support fading fast, even among Democrats. People, what independents care about, what most Americans care about, are issues that nothing's being touched by the Democrats. We have 3 weeks, less than 3 weeks left on the calendar that the House is in session.
Yeah.
And what are they doing? Americans care about jobs, they care about the economy, they care about trade. USMCA, bipartisan deal, over a year since it's been negotiated. And Nancy Pelosi isn't going to bring it to the floor. We have less than 3 weeks left.
Right.
This is what voters don't understand why Washington is doing this and wasting our time. And that's why it's reflecting in the polls, our internal polling, but now it's showing up in a lot of these public polls as well.
Yeah.
So what is the expanded map that you're looking at this point?
We're looking at New Mexico, New Hampshire, Minnesota. President was there at a rally the other a month ago, I guess, and a lot of states really that we're even looking at Brad Parscale, and the Trump campaign manager was going into Oregon just to see and feel what the ground is. But it really shows how open-minded our campaign is and how confident we are on our ideas and working together closely with the Trump campaign and issues that matter to voters and being data-driven.
Yeah.
We can find there are important races out there everywhere, and a lot of these states we're very confident about running on our agenda and record of accomplishments, contrasting it with the Democrats. Any of these Rust Belt states where you hear Democrats talking about banning fossil fuels, that's not going to work in the Rust Belt. It's not going to work for manufacturing. And so when you lay out the record of results and the extreme positions that the Democrats are taking, it's no contest, and that's why we're taking it to unconventional states.
At the same time, though, you had, speaking of unconventional states, you had a loss in Kentucky, you had a loss in Louisiana, you had major losses in Virginia, which is a state that's really shifted over the past number of years. What do you attribute those losses to?
Well, Kentucky, it was 12 out of 13, 5 out of 6.
Yeah, but this is a state the president won by 30 points.
Yeah, but this was also a governor who has now since conceded. It was very close with one of the lowest approval ratings in the country.
Yeah.
Again, going back to Candidates Matter, we got the first African-American Attorney General ever elected statewide, Republican. Mr. Cameron there. Amazing. And Mississippi as well, the first female attorney general. We got a lot of good wins that night that the rest of the media doesn't want to focus on. So we feel very good
So
about those
Bevin was
races.
unpopular in Kentucky. What do you think happened?
He was also down by 15, 17
No, he wasn't.
points.
He was never down by 17 points.
Yes,
I followed that race very closely. I saw all the internals. He was down by maybe 5, but it was always a close race.
Yeah.
Anyway, what about Louisiana? What happened there?
Well, here you have a pro-life governor who, in the Democrat Party these days, that's certainly not in line with the rest of their party. You try to win them when you can, and of course, he's not as moderate. He ran on a good economy.
Signed a heartbeat bill. Literally. Yeah.
Right. And
Yes.
he doesn't fit in with the mainstream of the Democrat Party. So, and he was running on a good economy, which of course he got a lot of help from President Trump in that regard. And so I think that's what it attributes.
Do you think Virginia's in reach for Trump this time around?
Well, it depends on what area of the state you're talking about. And unfortunately, I think we've seen the swamp extending itself over the past several election cycles. In Northern Virginia, I'll give you an example. Kathy Tran, who, speaking of extreme views on abortion, was the person who introduced the late-term abortion bill where Ralph Northam famously made his comments. She ran in Virginia, in Northern Virginia district. She won by 19 points. Just a couple weeks ago. So that kind of gives you an idea of how far left some of these areas in Northern Virginia.
Well, the suburbs have moved against the president. There's no doubt about that.
It's the heart of the resistance.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Liz.
All right, thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Next on Rising, we're going to have all our thoughts about the winners and the losers of last night's debate.
But our next guest was pretty excited about Senator Elizabeth Warren's performance. He thinks she showed up strong and fended off what he calls false attacks. Adam Green of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee is next.